There are moments in life when time itself seems to stretch into an endless horizon, where the seconds drip like water from a slow and ancient fountain. We find ourselves standing at the edge of hope, waiting for something unseen yet deeply longed for. In those moments, the words of Psalm 27-14 echo like a distant bell. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. It is not merely a call to pass time, but an invitation into a deeper, sacred posture, one that demands courage as much as faith. Waiting is rarely comfortable. The human heart craves movement, resolution, and visible signs that our prayers and efforts are not lost in the vastness of silence. Yet Scripture does not present waiting as a void. It portrays it as a space where unseen roots grow beneath the soil, hidden from the impatient eye, but essential for the strength of what will one day rise above ground. Like a seed buried in darkness, we too are asked to trust in what we cannot see. Imagine a quiet valley at dawn. The mist clings to the earth, softening every outline. You stand there, unable to see beyond a few steps ahead. Yet, you know the sun will eventually pierce through. That valley is the heart in waiting, shrouded, uncertain, yet promised light. Psalm 27-14 whispers not only to wait, but to be strong and take heart, as if to say, this waiting is not passive. It is an act of spiritual defiance against fear, doubt, and despair. It is choosing to believe that the silence of God is not His absence, but His preparation. There is a hidden paradox. In the stillness that feels empty, the most profound movements of grace are taking place. Just as a mother's womb quietly shapes the unseen form of a child, so too does divine timing form what cannot yet be revealed. To wait with patience is to live in harmony with a rhythm that is older than the world itself, a rhythm that shaped the stars, the tides, and every dawn that ever broke through night. At the heart of Psalm 27-14 lies a principle that defies the instinct of a restless world. The strength of a soul is measured not by how quickly it acts, but by how steadfastly it can endure the unseen. Waiting with patience is not a passive surrender. It is an active alignment with divine timing. It is the art of standing firm in faith, while everything around you tempts you to rush, to force, to seize control, rather than trust that something greater is unfolding. In nature, every living thing knows this rhythm instinctively. Trees do not demand that winter end on their schedule. Rivers do not argue with the rocks that slow their current. The moon never complains about its cycle of waxing and waning. They move, grow, and transform within an order that was set long before they existed. Humanity, however, often resists this wisdom. We build clocks, schedules, and expectations, imagining that progress is only real when it is visible. Yet Scripture tells us that the unseen work is often the most vital. Psalm 27-14 is not simply a comforting verse. It is a profound spiritual law. The verse does not just ask us to wait, but to be strong and take heart, implying that true waiting demands courage. It asks for a faith that sees beyond illusions, beyond the fleeting urgency of circumstances, into the deeper reality where God's promises are not only real, but unshakable. The difference between illusion and truth becomes clear in the waiting. Illusions demand immediacy. Truth allows process. This theme challenges the belief that life's worth is measured by speed or visible outcomes. Instead, it points to a higher pattern where patience becomes the gateway to transformation. In this light, waiting becomes less of a delay and more of a sacred preparation, shaping not only what we will receive, but who we will become. There is an ancient story, almost forgotten, that mirrors the essence of Psalm 27:14. It tells of a traveler who reached the edge of a desert, seeking a hidden spring rumored to grant life to barren lands. Guided only by an old map and a quiet faith, he set out, carrying little more than a small flask of water. The days passed under a sun that showed no mercy, and the horizon offered nothing but waves of heat. Yet the traveler pressed on, whispering to himself that the spring was real, though his eyes saw only sand. On the seventh day, his water was nearly gone. He came upon a small clay jar, half buried in the ground, its mouth sealed with wax. Next to it lay a note etched into a stone. Pour this water into the pump before you drink, and you will have more than enough. The traveler stood still, torn between the thirst screaming in his throat and the promise that felt almost too daring to trust. In that moment, waiting became a choice. Either surrender to immediate relief or believe in a greater, unseen provision. He hesitated, then poured the last drops of his water into the pump. At first, nothing happened. Panic flickered through him. But then, with steady pressure, a gush of cold, abundant water burst forth from the earth. He drank deeply, refilled his flask, and left the clay jar, brimming for the next traveler, inscribing below the old words, "It is true, trust and wait." This story is more than a tale. It is a mirror to the human spirit when faced with divine delay. Like the traveler, we often stand holding what feels scarce, tempted to consume it in fear rather than release it in trust. The pump, unseen and silent, requires an act of faith before it yields its abundance. In every season of waiting, something greater is hidden just beneath the surface, asking us to believe in what we cannot yet see. The story of the traveler and the desert is not confined to ancient sands. It echoes through the choices we face daily. Waiting with patience, as Psalm 27:14 urges, is not merely a spiritual discipline, but a way of navigating life as uncertainties with strength rather than anxiety. When challenges arise, our first instinct often drives us to act quickly, to fix, to secure immediate comfort. It is forged in the quiet, deliberate spaces where we resist the urge to control outcomes and instead align ourselves with a larger design. In practical terms, waiting with patience shapes how we handle relationships, ambitions, and even our sense of identity. In relationships, it means allowing time for trust to deepen rather than forcing connection. In goals, it means working diligently, but refusing to compromise integrity for speed. And in our inner life, it means accepting seasons where answers are hidden, choosing to believe that the apparent silence is cultivating resilience, wisdom, and deeper faith. When we embrace this way of waiting, something within us shifts. Anxiety loses its grip because we stop measuring worth by what we can see right now. Hope grows stronger because it is rooted not in immediate results, but in the unchanging character of God. And courage emerges, not as the absence of fear, but as the decision to keep standing firm, even when nothing seems to move. Patience is not passive. It demands daily choices, small acts of surrender, moments of trust, and the refusal to let fear dictate our steps. Each time we choose to wait rather than panic, to trust rather than grasp, we carve a path toward a life that is not just calmer, but richer, more grounded, and more capable of enduring whatever storms may come. Waiting with patience, as Psalm 27-14 teaches, is not simply a spiritual suggestion. It is an invitation into a way of living that reshapes our understanding of time, trust, and strength. It asks us to see life not as a sacred journey, where each pause carries purpose. The verse calls us to a courage that does not depend on visible signs, to a hope that thrives even in silence, and to a strength that is born not from rushing forward, but from standing firm when everything in us wants to move. When we truly internalize this posture, waiting ceases to feel like a prison and begins to feel like a hidden workshop of grace. It is in these quiet, unseen seasons that our hearts are prepared to carry what we have asked for, often in ways we could not have imagined. Just as the seed cannot demand an early spring without destroying its own future bloom, we cannot force divine timing without weakening the very blessings meant to sustain us. This call to wait is not merely about what we receive at the end of the waiting. It is about who we become along the way. The traveler in the desert left more than a jar of water for others. He left a testimony that faith, when acted upon, multiplies its impact. Likewise, each time we choose to trust God's timing, we plant seeds of courage and hope for those around us who are watching, silently wondering if they too can endure their own deserts. So now, the question turns to you. Where in your life are you being asked to wait? What promises feel distant, and what silent fields are you standing in? Will you see this time not as empty, but as sacred? Will you dare to believe that even now, something unseen is taking root within you? Take heart, be strong, wait for the Lord, not with resignation, but with expectation, as though the horizon you cannot yet see is already glowing with a light that will one day break through. The call is not only to wait, but to be transformed while you wait, becoming a living testimony that patience is not weakness, but the very strength that makes room for divine miracles.